Grace Miller's cheeks flushed a deep shade of crimson as she glared at him. Ethan Ford, you jerk! You're taking advantage of me again. Why was this guy so touchy-feely lately? Was he openly trying to cop a feel? She really needed to find a time to teach him a lesson. Hey, Grace, don't slander me. I could sue you for defamation. Ethan said with a look of righteous indignation. Tank, did you hear that? She's slandering my good name. Wayne Tank, Turner chuckled secretly. Ethan's got skin as thick as a tank's armor, he thought. I gotta take notes. As the three of them joked around, their homeroom teacher, Mr. Zane, known affectionately and fearfully as the Warlord, strode briskly into the room. The classroom instantly fell silent. Mr. Zane knocked on the podium, scanning the class before speaking in a serious tone. Today is the first day of the state boards. Math in the morning, English lit in the afternoon. Tomorrow morning is science, and tomorrow afternoon is history. Remember the schedule. Don't forget it. Make sure you have your admission tickets, IDs, and pencils ready. Don't make any last-minute mistakes. After we dismiss, head straight to your testing centers. Be safe on the road, and for heaven's sake, do not be late. Is that clear? The whole class shouted in unison, clear. Mr. Zane's expression softened, revealing a rare, kindly smile. After these exams, your days at Oak Creek High are numbered. Soon, you'll all be going your separate ways. I hate to see you go, truly, but I wish you all the best results. May your futures be bright. Mr. Zane's sincere words were simple but moving. A few sentimental girls in the class were already secretly wiping away tears. Ethan sighed inwardly. The Warlord. He's actually a pretty good guy. He was strict, sure, but he genuinely cared about his students. After Mr. Zane finished his instructions, he dismissed the class to head to the testing center. Ethan, Grace, and Tank were all assigned to the same testing location, Oak Creek High's main auditorium and gym complex, though they were in different sections. The three of them rode their bikes to the school entrance. A crowd of parents had already gathered, watching their children enter the school gates as if sending soldiers off to war. The parents' faces all held the same tension, their eyes filled with the same desperate hope. After entering the school grounds, the trio said their goodbyes. Tank, do your best. You got this. Ethan patted him on the shoulder. I will, Ethan. Tank nodded vigorously. Although his grades weren't stellar, he was hoping to get into a decent community college or maybe a state satellite campus. Just getting a degree would be a win. Ethan, you do your best too. I'll wait for you at the gate after the test. Grace raised a small fist, looking spirited and confident. Deal. Ethan smiled and nodded. After separating, they headed to their assigned rooms. Ethan found a section, sat down at the desk corresponding to his ID number. Soon, students trickled in, filling the single desk spaced widely apart. Once everyone was seated, a middle-aged female proctor walked in. As soon as the clock struck the hour, she began distributing the test booklets and reading the rules. The bell rang. The state boards had officially begun. All right, students, you may begin, the proctor announced. The room was immediately filled with the sound of scribbling pencils. Ethan skimmed through the entire math booklet. He already felt confident. This year's test wasn't particularly hard, and the big word problems were exactly within the scope he had studied. If he was careful, a perfect score shouldn't be a problem. Ethan smiled faintly and bent over his desk to begin. Time flowed slowly. An hour passed in the blink of an eye. Outside the school gate, countless parents stood in silence, too anxious to chat, craning their necks to see inside. A news van from a local station pulled up, the engine breaking the silence. A reporter and a cameraman hopped out. The reporter was a woman in her early 30s with shoulder-length hair, wearing a professional gray skirt suit. She had a slim figure and a pleasant face. Her appearance caused a stir among the waiting parents. Hey, isn't that Natalie Young from City Focus on Channel 5? What's she doing here? Huh, come interview me. I want to be on TV. Hey, it really is the City Focus team. They cover the exams every year. I didn't think they'd come here today. Interview me. Natalie Young heard the chatter, but ignored it. She did have an interview assignment today, but not the usual anxious parent angle. Every year, they interviewed parents who gave the same repetitive advice and expressed the same hopes. It was stale. So, before heading out, the production team had a meeting and decided to switch it up. Interview the students instead. Specifically, she wanted to interview the very first student to walk out of the exam. She wanted to know how they felt about this year's test. Will, how long has the exam been going? Natalie asked her assistant, Grant. We'll check his watch. Nat, exactly 1 hour. There's still 30 minutes left until the end. Natalie nodded and smiled. Good. Get the camera ready. We'll wait right here for the first student to come out. Nat, I doubt anyone's coming out this early. Should we take a break in the shade? Will wiped sweat from his forehead. It was scorching hot after a brief rain shower. The sun was blazing, making the air thick and muggy, like a sauna. Fine. Go buy 2 bottles of water. Natalie was sweating too. She waved him off. You got it. Will ran off to buy water. Natalie and the cameraman ducked under the shade of a tree to cool off. But just as she sat down, she saw a student walking out of the building. There was no one else behind him. Huh, someone handed in their test already. Natalie was stunned. Quick, don't let him get away. Get over there and interview him. She didn't wait for Will. She grabbed the cameraman and rushed to the gate, blocking the student just as he exited. Hello, viewers. I'm reporter Natalie Young. Today, I'm interviewing the very first student to walk out of the exam hall. Hello there. I'm from Channel 5 City Focus. I'm Natalie. What's your name? Natalie put on her most professional, friendly smile and held the microphone to the student's mouth. Ethan Ford. Haha, nice to meet you, Ethan. First off, good luck with your exams. Thanks. Can I ask, why did you leave the exams so early? I finished writing. I didn't want to stay inside, so I came out, Ethan said with a smile. Natalie paused. Wow, this kid is... Oh, okay. So, how did you find the difficulty of the math section this year? Honestly, pretty simple. Not hard at all, Ethan said truthfully. It was the truth. If it hadn't been that simple, he wouldn't have left the moment the early dismissal period began. It was actually much easier than he expected. He had finished in 40 minutes, but the rule said you had to wait an hour to leave. He had spent 20 minutes spinning his pencil out of boredom. The parents gathered nearby, heard Ethan's words, and looked at him with disdain. Which school is this kid from? So arrogant? Natalie was also bewildered. This young man, not very old, but he sure talks big. Well, this student certainly seems confident about the exams. Let's wish him a victorious start. Natalie offered a polite platitude, but internally she was skeptical. Is this kid just unable to answer the questions? So he scribbled whatever and bailed. Those who hand in tests early are usually either super geniuses or total slackers. This kid looked more like the latter. Thanks, Ethan smiled faintly. Okay, thank you for accepting our interview, Natalie said to the camera. Once she signaled the cut, the cameraman lowered the camera. Nat, do we keep filming? Of course. Let's wait and interview some other students, Natalie nodded. Ethan finished the interview and ran over to sit under the shade of a tree, waiting for Tank and Grace to come out. As the end of the exam period approached, more students began to trickle out. Natalie grabbed a few for quick interviews to build up footage. When the official bell rang, students swarmed out like a black tide. Natalie scanned the crowd for a suitable interview subject. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. She spotted a striking figure in the crowd, a beautiful girl. Her presence attracted the gaze of many male students around her. She's the one. Natalie approached her. Hi, I'm Natalie Young, host of City Focus. Would you mind accepting a quick interview? She asked with a smile. Passers-by turned to look. They saw a stunningly beautiful girl in a white casual dress shirt, her hair in a ponytail, skin fair as snow, radiating youthful energy. 2 young male students were staring at her so intently they forgot to watch where they were going and walked straight into a utility pole, grimacing in pain. Grace blinked at the sudden appearance of the reporter and camera. She quickly smoothed her hair and straightened her clothes. Sure. Grace nodded. Oh my God, am I going to be on TV? She felt a flutter of excitement. What's your name? Grace Miller. Hello, Grace. Did you find the math exam difficult this morning? Natalie asked her standard question. Grace gave a bitter smile. It was actually pretty hard. The final big questions were beyond what we covered in class, totally new types of problems. But luckily, I've been cramming math problems with a friend recently, so I think I managed to get a decent score. Grace put on a humble expression. Natalie laughed. You think it was hard, too? Aside from the very first student I interviewed, everyone has said it was difficult. It seems the difficulty level of our exams is rising every year. Grace, how are you feeling now that it's over? Grace grinned. Not bad. I'm in a good mood. As she spoke, Grace looked around, searching for Ethan. Are you waiting for a friend? Natalie asked casually. Yeah. Waiting for a friend. Grace nodded. Grace. Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded from behind the cameraman. Grace tilted her head and saw Ethan hiding behind the cameraman, looking smug. Ethan, how did you get out before me? Grace was stunned. Natalie turned around and saw Ethan too. Oh, they know each other. Perfect. A contrast interview. Haha, Grace, this student was actually the very first one to walk out of the exam hall. Natalie laughed. The first one? Ethan, you've got some nerve. Grace stared at him in shock. Everyone else wished the exam could be extended by half an hour to check their work or recalculate to prevent mistakes. He, on the other hand, walked out first. Did he really do well? It was too boring inside, so I finished and came out. Ethan walked over and stood beside her. Although his grades weren't stellar, he was hoping to get into a decent community college or maybe a state satellite campus. Just getting a degree would be a win. If you flunked it, you're in trouble. Grace huffed, though she was secretly worried. Don't worry, I definitely aced it. If I don't get a good score, I'll roast myself. Ethan joked. Roast yourself? I'll tear you in half and roast you myself. I'll sprinkle chili and cumin on you. Grace retorted arrogantly. Seeing how close they were, Natalie narrowed her eyes and continued the interview. You too. If you had to rate the difficulty of this math test from 1 to 10, what score would you give it? 8.5. They spoke simultaneously, giving completely different answers. Ethan glanced at her sideways. Grace, it clearly wasn't hard, okay? It was clearly very difficult, okay? Grace glared back. The two stared each other down. Natalie was secretly amused. Don't I have my news angle right here? Confident student faces reality check. If she came back to interview him when the scores were released, the scene of his failure, it would definitely become gossip fodder. A viral news moment. Thank you both for the interview. I hope your English Lit exam this afternoon goes smoothly. Natalie waved, and the cameraman cut the feed. Grace asked excitedly, Am I really going to be on TV? Will it air tonight? Yes, prime time on the news channel at 8 p.m. Remember to watch. Natalie explained. Okay, I'll watch it. Grace nodded, then turned to Ethan. Ethan, I'm starving. Let's go find something to eat. Let's wait for Tang to come out first. I saw a food stand at the intersection earlier. We could just eat there. Ethan looked back and spotted Tang coming out. He waved. Tang, over here. Tang jogged over. Ethan, and the great Grace. Tang, how did you do? Ethan asked with a smile. Tang gave a bitter laugh and scratched his head. Math was way too hard. I probably just scraped a passing grade. It's okay, as long as you did your best. Come on, let's get lunch. Ethan patted his shoulder. The three left together, with Ethan and Grace walking side by side in front, chatting and laughing, drawing envious looks from male students nearby. That guy is lucky. Getting to be that close to a beauty like that makes a guy jealous. Ethan and the others arrived at the food stand at the intersection. It was a place selling loaded cheese fries, the messy, greasy kind. Because the exam had just ended, the stand was swarmed with students. There were no seats left. Many people were just squatting on the curb or standing around with their paper trays. Ethan, looks like there are no seats. Tank looked around. Doesn't matter. We're just grabbing a quick bite. Squatting is fine, Ethan said indifferently. Tank looked at Grace, opened his mouth to say we don't mind, but Grace is the campus queen of Oak Creek High. Is she really going to squat on the street and eat fries? But he didn't say it. If Grace didn't object, then whatever Ethan said went. As soon as Grace appeared at the stand, she attracted the attention of most of the boys. Her beauty made her the focal point of the crowd. Many boys stared, dumbfounded. She's so beautiful. Which school is she from? Gorgeous. Looks like the Oak Creek uniform. Is that Grace Miller? Whoa, it really is her. Prettier in person. That face beats movie stars by a mile. The crowd buzzed with whispers. Princess Grace, you're quite famous, Ethan laughed. I don't care about such vanity, Grace said haughtily. All right, you wait here. I'll go buy the fries. Ethan lined up and bought 3 orders of loaded chili cheese fries. He got 3 number tickets and waited. 10 minutes later, Ethan's number was called. 3 steaming trays of fries were placed on the counter. Ethan and Tank grabbed their trays and squatted near the entrance to eat. Grace went to get hers, added some extra ketchup and ranch dressing at the condiment station, and then turned to look around. The boys she glanced at were thrilled. She's looking at me. Many boys immediately stood up to offer their seats. Here, you can have this seat. I'm full, you sit here. Hey, my friend is full. You can sit next to me. A burly guy kicked his friend off the bench. Friend. WTF. I just started eating. Brothers before hoes, man. Grace said coldly. Thanks, but no thanks. An ice queen. Look but don't touch. The cold rejection on that beautiful face kept people 1,000 miles away. A goddess was a goddess, full of class. But then, under the gaze of all the boys, Grace walked over to Ethan. She mimicked Ethan, squatting down on the curb, and started chowing down. Her image as the perfect ice queen shattered instantly. The boys watched, dumbfounded. No, it can't be. The crowd, 0 to Q. Who is that kid next to the goddess? How can he make the goddess lose her composure like that? The sight of Grace, squatting on the curb, eating chili cheese fries had become a spectacle. The crowd watched with expressions of pure shock. How could such a beautiful girl act so unrefined? She must have been led astray by that kid next to her. Many of the male students felt a deep sense of tragedy. Ethan noticed the mix of shock and envy in their eyes and whispered to Grace, "Grace, this is all your fault. We're just trying to eat, and now we're being watched like monkeys in a zoo." Grace ate a mouthful, getting a bit of ranch dressing on the corner of her lips. She looked completely unbothered as she mixed the cheese into the fries. "I don't mind. You're a big man. Why do you care? Why is this cheese so stringy? It's so hard to cut with this plastic fork." Ethan rolled his eyes. "It's melted mozzarella. It's supposed to be stretchy. You don't know how to eat it?" Grace was still struggling with a clump of fries fused together by cheese. She couldn't separate them inside. "How am I supposed to eat this if it won't break?" "Here, I'll teach you." Ethan reached out with his fork and stabbed the clump in Grace's tray. The other boys watching this were stunned. "Holy crap, that kid dares to stick his fork in the goddess's tray. What is their relationship? Are they a couple?" Crack. The sound of hearts breaking could be heard across the food stand. Ethan twirled the cheesy fries around his fork and lifted them to Grace's mouth. "Here, open up. Just bite the hanging cheese." Grace blinked. And then, you just eat the whole bite like this. Ethan forked a massive clump from his own tray and shoved it into his mouth, showing zero table manners. "That's the best way to eat it. Try it." Grace was skeptical, but she followed Ethan's method. Although it wasn't elegant, it did seem to be the only way to really enjoy the flavor. So, completely abandoning her goddess image, she started chowing down with big bites under the stunned gazes of the crowd. The three of them quickly filled their stomachs, dusted off their pants, and left. There were only 2 hours left until the afternoon exam, so there wasn't enough time to go all the way home to rest. The weather was stiflingly hot, so Ethan suggested resting in a nearby park where there were shade trees and benches. They found a bench under a large oak tree and sat down. "It's so hot. What do we do?" Grace fanned herself with her hand, sweating lightly, but her eyes darted around as if she was plotting something. "What do we do?" "Deal with it. Just be glad we have shade," Ethan said, leaning back on the bench. Ethan, I'll fan you." Tank laughed sycophantically. He picked up a large leaf from a nearby bush and used it as a fan for Ethan. "Little Tank, good work. The Emperor is pleased," Ethan said with exaggerated authority. Grace rolled her eyes. "Ethan, don't you want to eat something ice cold?" "Like what?" "A rocket pop." "Oh, I want one. Go buy it." "Oomph. No, let's play rock, paper, scissors. Loser buys." "Deal." Ethan chuckled inwardly. Rock, paper, scissors again. This girl almost always threw rock. Winning against her was too easy. "Sure, let's do it." Ethan shrugged. They put their hands behind their backs, staring into each other's eyes, trying to read the other's move. 3, 2, 1. Rock, paper, scissors. Grace threw rock, as expected, and Ethan threw paper, as expected. Wait, actually, previous patterns suggest Ethan usually wins by predicting her. If she threw rock, he threw paper. "Oh yeah, I won again." "Ethan, you suck at this game." "Huh?" Grace jumped up excitedly, hands on her hips, laughing triumphantly. Ethan looked at her fondly and smiled. "Yeah, you won again. So how many do you want?" "Just one." "Forget it. I'll give you mine too." "I'll let you eat 2 rocket pops," Ethan smiled. Tank immediately stood up. "Ethan, you sit. I'll go buy them for you." He didn't want to be a third wheel. "Tank, you're learning." Ethan was a bit surprised. The originally simple-minded Tank had become quite observant. He had a bright future. I learned from the best." Tank laughed and turned to run off to buy the popsicles. Grace sat down, mimicking Ethan's posture, leaning back on the bench. Ethan glanced at her and suddenly noticed a mosquito landing on her chest. He looked closer. It really was a nasty mosquito. "Damn mosquito, daring to occupy my territory? You have a death wish, wait." Before striking, "Should I tell Grace?" Ethan thought for a moment and decided to warn her. "Grace, don't move." What's wrong?" "There's a mosquito. Don't move or it'll fly away. I'll smack it for you." Okay." Grace froze, keeping her body still, her eyes glancing suspiciously at Ethan. Ethan raised his hand and slapped down swiftly. "Grace." For a moment, their eyes met. The air was filled with awkward tension. Ethan subconsciously pressed down a little. "Nice elasticity." "You jerk, Ethan." Grace reacted, her face flushing red. She slapped his hand away and grabbed him by the collar. "Is this jerk making up excuses to feel me up again? I'm going to kill him." Stop. "Grace, there really was a mosquito." Ethan opened his hand to show the flattened corpse of the mosquito. Grace saw the dead mosquito and paused. He really did kill a mosquito." "Oomph." Fine, I'll spare your dog life this time. Grace lowered her fist and let him go. But that slap just now had thrown her heart into chaos. It was pounding her chest. Stupid Ethan. Detestable. She felt like she had been tricked, but there was nothing she could do about it. Ethan blew the mosquito corpse off his hand and clapped the dust away. All right, mosquito neutralized. Aren't you going to thank me for saving your life? Grace rolled her eyes. You just swatted a tiny bug. What do you want? Saving my life. Keep dreaming. Ethan kept a straight face. Mosquitoes naturally carry all sorts of bacteria and viruses. If you get bitten, you could get infected. If you get infected, the virus spreads in your body. If you get a fever, you could go into shock. If you go into shock and nobody notices, you could die. Look at that logic. Isn't that saving your life? Guresu, shoukaku hajime, kaomoji, rinku. You jerk, you took a 2-cent problem and rounded it up to $1 million, didn't you? Get lost. Grace yawned, feeling a bit sleepy. Ethan, what time is it? Exactly 1:30. Still an hour before the exam. Ethan checked his phone. He turned and saw Grace looking drowsy. He rubbed her head affectionately. Why don't you take a nap? No, I haven't had my rocket pop yet. Grace forced herself to stay awake at the thought of the treat. Just then, Ethan's phone rang. It was a call from Grace's home landline. Ethan answered, and Lily Miller's voice came through. Hello, Ethan. How did the exams go? Not bad. No problems. We got this, Ethan smiled. That's good. You've all worked hard today. I took 2 days off work to make some good food for you. I'm stewing an old hen for soup, and I bought fresh oysters. I'm going to make garlic butter oysters. Oysters are great for energy. Ethan's eyes lit up at the mention of garlic butter oysters. It was one of the few foods he never got tired of and loved more the more he ate it. Awesome. Thanks, Aunt Lily. Ethan said happily. All right, do well in the afternoon exam. Good luck. Come home for dinner when you're done. Lily laughed. You got it. Ethan hung up, and Grace leaned her head over. My mom. Yeah, Auntie said she's making good food tonight. Garlic oysters. Ethan grinned. Nice. I haven't had oysters in so long. Grace smacked her lips. Just hearing the name made her mouth water. Grace's family used to be better off than Ethan's, but they still didn't eat expensive seafood often. Only during holidays or birthdays. There was a famous oyster-producing region nearby, Chesapeake Bay style, where the oysters were big and plump. And in the local food as medicine culture, oysters were considered a tonic for replenishing energy. As they were talking about oysters, Tank came back with the treats. He bought 3 popsicles and a bottle of Mountain Dew. Ethan, since you're not eating a popsicle, I got you soda. Tank handed him the drink. Ethan was slightly surprised. Tank had changed. He was smarter, more thoughtful. Tank, you're thoughtful. Ethan took the soda, popped the tab, and took a big swig. Glug glug, burp so refreshing. Still the classic taste. Ethan praised. The ice-cold soda hit his stomach, instantly washing away the summer heat. Grace held a popsicle in each hand, licking the left one, then the right one. Her pink tongue slid over the red, white, and blue rocket pops. It was quite cute. Ethan watched her enjoying them and wanted to taste. Grace, let me have a lick, okay? Why should I? Didn't you have your soda? Grace turned away, eyeing him warily, afraid Ethan would snatch her food. I'll give you a sip, you give me a lick. Trade, Ethan proposed. No way. I've already licked them. Grace shook her head like a rattledrum. Ethan grinned shamelessly. I don't mind. Grace glared at him. I'm mine. Just one bite. How about it? Let me have a bite, and I promise to buy you another one next time. Ethan swore. Hearing she could get another one later, Grace was tempted. Just one bite? Really? Really? Just let me have a taste. Fine. Grace held a rocket pop to his mouth. Ethan lowered his head, opened his mouth, and chomp. He bit off nearly half the popsicle. Ethan Ford, you have a death wish. Grace's eyes went wide. She stared at the bare stick, shocked and furious. Tricked by this jerk again. It was just one bite. Ethan mumbled with a wicked grin, his mouth full of ice, freezing his teeth. That was a bite. You said a lick. You lied again. I'm going to strangle you. Grace clamped the other popsicle in her mouth and shoved him down onto the bench with one hand. Tank quickly grabbed his own popsicle and dodged to the side to avoid collateral damage. He watched Ethan getting pinned down by Grace and prayed silently. Amen. God help you. Ethan, you're on your own. I can't help you with this kind of thing. Besides, the two of us together probably couldn't take Grace in a fight. Good luck. He finished his prayer and ran far away to watch the show. Ethan and Grace wrestled for a few minutes until they were tired, then stopped. Jerk, if you dare bite my rocket pop again, I'll bite you. Grace bared her cute little canine teeth. All right, truce. Hurry up. and eat your popsicle and rest. Otherwise, you won't have energy for the afternoon. Ethan laughed. Grace actually listened. She stopped licking and crunched through the remaining 2 popsicles in a few bites. After eating and the wrestling match, Grace's battery was drained. She yawned and leaned back on the bench to nap. Not long after, Ethan heard her steady breathing, but her head had nowhere to rest. Every time she drifted off, her head would droop and wake her up. Ethan shifted closer, sat next to her, and used his hand to guide her head onto his shoulder. Sleep. Grace hummed softly against Ethan's shoulder, closed her eyes, and slowly drifted into deep sleep. After a while, Ethan heard the faint sound of snoring. He turned his head and saw a faint smile on that exquisite face beneath her shiny black hair. Ethan couldn't help but smile. What kind of sweet dream is this little girl having? The dog days of summer rolled in with waves of heat. In the trees, cicadas tirelessly performed their midsummer symphony. In the park, under the shade, the 2 figures on the bench leaned against each other. Grace was sound asleep. Ethan wasn't sleeping. He had his phone out, playing Snake. Beep, beep, beep. Suddenly the alarm rang. 2:10 p.m. Grace was woken by the alarm, muttering groggily, "Stupid Ethan, what time is it?" "Sleepyhead, it's 2:10. Get ready, time to go to the exam." Ethan turned his head and smiled at her. Grace slowly opened her eyes and rubbed them. "So soon." Have you been here the whole time?" Grace realized she had been sleeping on Ethan's shoulder. Her cheeks reddened. "Yeah, where else would I go? Quick, go wash your face and wake up. We have to get to the testing center." Ethan moved his shoulder, feeling a wave of soreness. To avoid waking her, he hadn't moved a muscle for nearly